Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our debut NHL Playoffs live stream here on the Fantasy Pros Twitch channel. I am Tyler Conium, and I am joined by Betting Pros NHL expert Kelly Kirby. How are you doing today, Kelly, and how excited are you for the NHL Playoffs?
I am doing great. I'm mostly excited for the playoffs, depending on the health of Leon Draisaitl. And yeah, otherwise, I'm super excited to be doing this with you.
Yeah, I'm very excited that Betting Pros gave us this opportunity. We're going to be live each and every Tuesday and Friday at 3 p.m. through the Stanley Cup Finals right here on Twitch. So thank you for joining us today, and let's jump right into it. What was your biggest surprise or disappointment from the NHL season this year?
Surprise or disappointment was probably the Nashville and Boston and just the teams that were so bad that I was kind of used to, these were the bets I was hitting and like I just couldn't count on any of them. And then you go to the Capitals. I did not see that coming at all. So
yeah, I know. I think Boston's point total over under was 94.5 preseason, and they sold off everybody. They got rid of Brad Marchand, which I thought was, I don't know, an interesting move. Certainly, obviously, his landing spot in Florida is very exciting for that series too. And my Toronto Maple Leafs, so I am a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. Don't hold that against me. But them winning the Atlantic Division, I don't think anybody expected that. But that was pretty exciting for me. And I know you're an Oilers fan. So how did you feel their season went?
Their season was like up and down, I think. Just again, the injuries were, it was like we lost McDavid for a little bit, and then Draisaitl just kind of disappeared, and yet somehow still led the league in goals. And then Ekholm going down is probably the most scary thing for us. But otherwise, it was pretty what I expected from them, I think. So
yeah, and that's the first. As we get into this, we'll break down each and every series before we get into round one, which starts tomorrow. Interesting scheduling with the NHL. I'm not sure why they decided to do that, but the playoffs start tomorrow, but Tampa and Florida don't play until Tuesday. You've got games at 11 o'clock at night. So as we were saying beforehand, they can't do two things right at once. So they knocked it out of the park with the Four Nations, and now you've got scheduling trouble. But let's start in the Western Conference, and let's start with your Edmonton Oilers. You mentioned injuries, possibly a concern. The Oilers open as minus 135 favorites to win the series. Kings are plus 115. The spread, Oilers minus 1.5 or plus 135. And you've got the Kings at minus 165 for it to go 7 games. So really what the books are saying is they expect it to be another 7-game series. This is the 4th consecutive time these two teams have met in the opening round. Oilers have won the last 3. They actually just played April 5th and 14th to end the regular season, 3-0 and 5-0 wins for the Kings. But the Kings are 0-5 in playoff series since winning in 2014. So how do you see this series starting, and what are your initial thoughts on Kings Oilers?
Well, I had no idea that our production guy was a Kings fan, so he might just mute me in the middle of this. But yeah, I'm really not thrilled at all to be playing the Kings in the first round again. I feel like their series are just brutal and I think they always go 6 or 7. And I'm definitely expecting this one to go 7. I'm not worried about based on the last 2 games because basically the Edmonton kind of benched everyone and wasn't risking a whole lot. But yeah, it's just going to be a brutal series. Based on the hitting. I feel like the Kings just take out the Oilers and the Oilers skate around like we don't have to touch anyone. But if we have Draisaitl back and McDavid and Zach Hyman, and if our goaltenders can pretend they know how to 10 goal in the playoffs, I feel like the Oilers will come out, but it makes me nervous.
I do think goaltending is a concern. You've got Darcy Kemper, who's on the Kings. He has played well. There might actually be some Vezina consideration for him. Did win the Cup with the Colorado Avalanche in 2022. What are your concerns with Edmonton in net? Obviously, Stuart Skinner, I think they plan to have him be the number 1 goalie, but I think he's had some injuries as well. And then you've got Calvin Pickard, who's been okay. But do you think that could be an X factor despite all the Oilers' obviously star-studded scoring?
Yeah, I think it can be an X factor. I think the most surprising thing about Edmonton for me this year was how they limited shots by the other team. It was like betting the Oilers goalie under was very, very profitable. So I feel like if they can kind of make sure that they limit the number of shots, then maybe Skinner can stand on his head if he has to. But yes, I would rather have Kemper if it all came down to it.
How scared are you that the Oilers can get knocked out in the first round? Do you think the Kings, I mean, everybody they've won 3 in a row. It's hard to beat the same team 4 seasons in a row in the playoffs. How scared are you that the Kings can upset the Oilers here?
I was scared, and I'm scared enough that I am gonna bet the Oilers, but I thought long and hard about betting the Kings at plus money. This one really does scare me the most. The Kings are just always a pain for us. So, yeah.
I think it might be a good bet if you can bet somewhere. I couldn't find this on DraftKings. It's got to be out there. If you can bet this series to go 7 games, I'm not sure what those odds are, but that just seems to be the way the Oilers start in the playoffs and perhaps end in the playoffs. But you have the Oilers to win this series. That would be my prediction too. I think they just do have enough firepower. If they can stay healthy, they should be able to overwhelm the LA Kings. Moving to the next series, this is a big one. It has shifted a little bit. We're talking about the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche. This opened at -110 on both sides. We did have the injury to Jason Robertson Wednesday night for the Stars. Now it's shifted. Colorado is -140 on the money line. The Dallas Stars are +120. There is still some uncertainty there. We don't know if Jason Robertson is going to play or not. So that's going to be interesting. And then you've got the whole Mikko Rantanen situation. So he was traded from Colorado after, halfway through the season, spent 2 weeks on the Carolina Hurricanes, finally landing in Dallas. How do you think this series shapes up or starts? Are you concerned with Jason Robertson? Do you think that injury is enough to have moved this line as much as it did?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Robertson is just so important to them in terms of scoring and his ability to pass, and it kind of puts a lot more pressure on Rantanen in a way, but I also can see him rising up because of how his year went. So that's I think Robertson being out shouldn't have swung it maybe quite this far. I could have gone like maybe -130, but I can see why they did it depending on what his status.
That's what I was thinking too. And I think that it's funny when we'll talk about cup winners at the end, but the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche actually have the best 2 odds to win the Stanley Cup. And then here they are in a first round matchup. So, and it's funny, 3rd and 4th is Tampa and Florida, also in a first round matchup. So that's a whole other conversation of whether or not the NHL playoff format. I still prefer 1 through 8. I don't know how you feel if you like this new create rivalries format, but it's interesting that you play this whole season to get to this point, and now you've got 2 of the front runners to win the cup. One of them is going to be gone after the first round. So, and then you've got Miro Heiskanen. He's been out since January. He might miss the entire series, and that could be tough too. And then when you look at sort of the star matchups, it's going to be McKinnon and Rantanen. Let's say they sort of cancel each other out. I think a big difference maker might be Cale Makar, who absolutely torched the Dallas Stars this season. He's had 3 goals, 7 points, including an overtime winner in the series finale. What do you think the defensive side, and then going into the goaltending, do you think that will play a big role, or is this more going to be an upfront battle between the top lines of each side?
I think it's going to be more of a top line, and I think Makar is definitely the X factor. And if he plays the way that he has played against Dallas, if he plays the way that he can play, period, in the playoffs, that would be the difference. And like I think we were talking about Heiskanen being out, like the power of the defensive line swings so far toward the Avalanche that I think it'll just be hard for the Stars to score as much as they would have to.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And I think I lean Colorado to win this series. I think you're in agreement with me as well there. I think Nathan McKinnon and just the Avalanche do have that experience. I know Dallas has gone to back-to-back conference finals, which is great. Obviously, Colorado just won the cup not too long ago, and some of the players have changed. Landeskog is back from injury. I think that's a big addition that they didn't really have a lot throughout the regular season. But I just think it's different with hockey and basketball. You can talk a lot about the best player on the court is probably going to win the series for that team. Not so much the case in hockey, but I do think that will be the case here with Nathan McKinnon and their back end with Cale Makar. I think just having a little bit more. So I think we are in agreement there that the Colorado Avalanche probably win this series. So that would be my pick there. Before we get to the next series, just wanted to quickly talk about an offer from FanDuel. If you want to boost your bets, new FanDuel customers can bet $5 and win $250 in bonus bets if that first bet hits. Nice and simple, right? Just head over to bettingpros.com/FanDuel to get started. That's bettingpros.com/FanDuel. Make your plays on FanDuel today and try to turn $5 into $250. Moving on in the West, here's an interesting series. You've got the Winnipeg Jets and the St. Louis Blues. Jets are minus 180 to win this series. Blues are plus 155, heavy underdogs. Jets are plus 120 to win this series in 6 or less games. Blues are minus 140 not to lose in 6 or less games. So this is an interesting one because, of course, you've got the President's Trophy curse. The Winnipeg Jets finished this season with the most points on the year. Since 1986, the team with the most points has only won the Stanley Cup 8 times. Last team to do that was the 2013 Chicago Blackhawks. St. Louis, one of the final teams to clinch a playoff spot. They haven't made the playoffs in the past 2 seasons. So the Jets, to me, are being really disrespected because they have the 10th longest odds to win the Stanley Cup at plus 1,000, plus 1,100, depending on your books. What do you think about this series? I know the Winnipeg Jets are heavily favored here, but do you think it's crazy that they have the 10th best odds despite winning the President's Trophy?
I think, I mean, I the 10th best for sure. That seems a little bit absurd. I feel like the books are kind of playing it that the Jets started off so strong and like so much of their record came in those first like 16, 17 games. And maybe they feel like they've kind of tailed off and so they've dropped it. But I mean, I don't see anything about Winnipeg that would say, let's put them 10th and give them that type of odds aside from the President's curse. And I don't know if hockey is that superstitious, but yeah.
Well, and actually I saw a stat not too long ago that dove into the curse, quote unquote, and actually on a percentage basis, I forget what the entire breakdown was, but even though it's only 8 times, it's actually based on a percentage of teams that win the Stanley Cup. It is actually higher than any other seed. So even though it's a curse, they do actually win at a higher rate. And we'll get into futures a little bit later on, but I agree. You've got Connor Hellebuck, who led the league in goals against average, top candidate to win the Vezina, head coach is up for coach of the year. So, and the other funny thing is Connor Hellebuck is third, I think, right now in odds to win the Conn Smythe. So you have all these odds that would lead you to believe the Jets should, at the very least, win the Stanley Cup, or at the very least get to the Stanley Cup, but they have the 10th best odds there. Do you give the Blues any chance to win this series or even make it close?
I don't. I think, there's always a chance that they could make it close, but that's not the way that I would bet this at all. I just don't think they have the firepower to do it. And I think that to beat Hellebuck is going to take way more firepower than what they've got.
I agree. I think we've both bet this series to be minus 1.5 for the Jets. I guess the only thing you could say is maybe Jordan Binnington, who stood on his head at the Four Nations. He's got a good history when the Blues won the Cup previously. But people might forget, in Canada's first couple games of the Four Nations, myself included, we wanted Jordan Binnington out of the net because he let in some softies. And he obviously was a big reason Canada won the championship game. But I just don't know if they can get past the Jets there. So I think we're both on the same side of the Jets winning that to cover. Plus 120, I think, for them to win in 6 or less games, it's a great bet. You're getting plus money there. So that's what I would roll with. Last game in the Western Conference, we go to the Minnesota Wild and the Vegas Golden Knights. Another heavy favorite here with the Knights. They're minus 205 on the money line. Minnesota Wild are plus 170. The Knights are essentially even money, plus 110 to get this done in 6 or less games. Wild are minus 130 at plus 1.5. This is probably the series I have the least excitement for, maybe Carolina series. Vegas is looking to return to the promised land. They won the Stanley Cup in 2023. They did lose in the first round last year at the hands of the Dallas Stars. These two teams met in 2021 in round 1, where Vegas won this as well. How excited are you for this series? Do you think there's really any intriguing matchups here, or is this another case of Vegas rolling over Minnesota?
Yeah, so I live in Minnesota, and I would say on Tuesday when all they had to do was tie or beat Anaheim, and at the time I was at a sports bar and it was tied at the end. Everyone was losing their minds about it, that this shouldn't have been hard, and they've been all of the fans around here are kind of like, okay, well, we made it. And that's like the feeling that
that's
you
the
get.
win.
So yeah, I feel like Vegas, unless Gustafsson can really shut them down, I have no issue betting Vegas at minus 1.5. So
Yeah, I agree. I'm not betting this one just because this is the series, one of the series I think that will start at 11 o'clock at night too. So I'm on the East Coast. I won't be watching a tremendous amount of these games. I do think Gustafsson he's played one playoff series in his career. He had a 2.3 goals against the 921 save percentage. So he might be able to pull out a game or two, maybe. But then you've got Aiden Hill on Vegas, who, when they won the cup, he was 11-4, 2.1 goals against. I think, take away all the offensive power too. I think he's the one that makes the difference. So you've got Vegas there to cover the spread. I'm staying away from that one. So just to recap on our Western Conference, we both like the Edmonton Oilers to win the series. That is minus 135. We both like the Colorado Avalanche to win that series as well. We both like the New York Jets, the Winnipeg Jets to cover the spread. And then for Vegas and Minnesota, you like Vegas. I like Vegas too. I would bet Vegas too. I just don't want to pay minus 205 and I don't want to do 3 spread bets, but that would be my pick as well. So now let's move over to the Eastern Conference. Let's move over to my favorite team, the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Battle of Ontario is back. So you've got the Toronto Maple Leafs, they're minus 170. On the flip side, you've got the Ottawa Senators plus 145. Leafs are plus 120 to cover the spread on the series. Ottawa is minus 140 to cover the spread on their side as well. How are you excited for this series? Is this just an Ontario, Canada thing? Do people get the same feeling of, oh, it's Toronto, Ottawa again? Or is that sort of just me?
Yeah, I think you're kind of in a unique position here where the Battle of Ontario definitely affects you more than it does me. I know that it gets ugly. And again, sort of that same, like, well, maybe not slow this year, but I feel like they always just kind of go at each other and it can get into a slog pretty fast if they do it. But yeah, I'm not overly excited. I would really like Toronto to win. Mostly I just don't like Ottawa, but I don't talk about Toronto in the playoffs mostly around you ever. So
yeah. It's weird to me to think back, like the Battle of Ontario. If you don't know, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Ottawa Senators played 4 times in 5 years from 2000 to 2004. I can't believe it's been 25 years. Like if you told me that those series happened 5 or 10 years ago, I would have believed you. So, we're talking Matt Sundin, Alexander McGillney, Zdeno Chara, Alfredson, who's now an assistant coach with Ottawa, Travis Green, who's the head coach. Alfredson's an assistant coach. Travis Green is the head coach. It does mean a lot here, but I think it's just that the Toronto doesn't have to play Tampa or Florida for once. So we feel like there's probably a better chance to actually advance. But taking myself out of it as a fan and just looking at this series as a whole, I think one of the biggest things for the Leafs is going to be Craig Berube. So Berube comes in, Sheldon Keefe is gone. He's in New Jersey now. And the biggest thing as a fan that watches this team that we've noticed is in the past, especially in the playoffs, the Leafs would come out flat in the first period all the time. They'd get behind. They'd always be playing from behind. You don't get that sense this year. You get this sense of urgency. You get the sense of they will beat the teams they're supposed to beat. And we saw that, especially the last month of this season. I thought the Toronto Maple Leafs played very, very well. Obviously, you've got the top line, Matthews, Marner, and Nyes. You've got John Tavares, who had an incredible age 34 season contract year with 38 goals. Senators do get Brady Tkachuk back, who missed the team's final 11 games. So this is another one. I'm going to bet it, but I'm very hesitant to say, oh, yeah, the Leafs will win, because that never happens. And if you're a Leafs fan or you've watched Leafs, you know what's going to happen next. So do you see that there's a way to even bet this, that the Ottawa Senators might come out on top of this series?
I don't actually see. I mean, I say no bet on the overall game. I would definitely tell everyone that, like, this is where I will target player props, because I love Toronto's top line and tackling them and Nylander and everyone else. But I don't think Ottawa has a chance. But I also just don't know at minus 150 if I want to lay that for Toronto, and I definitely don't know if they can get it done in 6. So that's more that not being willing to bet that it'll be over in 6 is probably more reflective of how I see Toronto in the playoffs.
That's fair. And I am going to bet Toronto to win this game in 6 or less, but again, that could just be the fan in me. And on paper, they should. Anthony Stolarz has been great, but then of course, you've got Linus Ullmark in Ottawa, who gave Toronto trouble with Boston for all those years too. So I'm going to put faith in the fact this is Austin Matthews' 9th season, new coach in Craig Berube. At some point, they either have to get over the hump or don't. Mitch Marner is in a contract year as well. So I am expecting that if they don't do it, keep in mind, we've been saying this for 9 years of Austin Matthews. If they don't do it this year, they're going to have to tear it down. So I guess we will see. But you did mention betting props on this series, and you are the prop master for NHL prop bets on Betting Pros as well. Always betting on player props, particularly plus money player props. I know you've got a lot of betting systems there as well. So I did want to talk about the NHL prop bet cheat sheet on Betting Pros. If you're betting props all playoffs long as they get in starting tomorrow, use the NHL prop bet cheat sheet. It shows you the very best value plays each and every day. I use it every day. Kelly uses it every day. You get daily prop bet value rankings based on projections. You can find the best props for shots on goal, for points, for saves, and more. Use it now at bettingpros.com/NHL props or on the Betting Pros app. Like I said, it's great to just get a breakdown of who's doing what, just historical matchups, all that sort of thing. So I know you'll be using it, and I'll just be blindly following those bets. So we will do that. Shifting pace. This is another one. There's the Battle of Ontario, and now there's the Battle of Florida. It's the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Florida Panthers. Panthers currently minus 115 on the money line. Tampa minus 105. Are you more excited for this series than you are for Toronto, Ottawa, the Battle of Florida?
I just see that as pick which Tkachuk I want to deal with. So I'm not really sure if I think I'm probably a little more excited series wise about this one, but I would way rather watch the Maple Leafs play than either of these teams. So yeah, I'm excited. I think they know each other way too well. And I don't know if Marchand, is it Marchand? Yeah.
Yeah.
He could be a huge
Marchand, whatever.
Yeah, he could be a huge X factor, I think, in this one, just because I cannot imagine the level of annoyance between Tkachuk and him would be off the charts. But I don't know is Matthew going to be back? I think is he out? I don't remember.
He is. So I read a report today that he's possible for game one. They don't know.
Okay.
They do expect him to play in the series. So I do think this series probably takes the cake for most annoying players with Marchand, Tkachuk, and then Corey Perry as well. Those are the three players that get under the opposition's skin, I think, more than anybody. And I think that fans hate more than anybody. I do also think this is a series that we differ on as well. To be honest, I saw that you had picked the Lightning, so I just picked the Panthers just to kind of have a bit of a debate in round one. It is the matchup between three of the last 5 Stanley Cup champions. 4th time in the last 5 years these teams will meet. First time in the first round. Yeah, I think the big thing for me is just going to be how healthy Matthew Tkachuk is. We saw in their playoff run last year, he's that guy. He's got that it factor in terms of scoring the big goals, in terms of agitating the other team, getting under their skin, making it so it'll take them off of their game. I totally agree that this series could go 7 games. I would, again, this is another one that if I was betting just the games, I would bet this game to go 7, bet this series to go 7. Sam Reinhart did pick up the slack in the absence of Tkachuk. You've got Aaron Ekblad. That's another big one too. He's going to miss game 1 and game 2 of this series because he's just coming off the 20-game suspension for PEDs. And then, of course, on the flip side, you've got Nikita Kucherov, who once again led the league in points with 121. Or is this another series where you're looking to go heavy on props?
Yeah, for sure. I'm especially if Tkachuk doesn't play in the first one, then I love to target Kucherov like in any way I can. But I also like Reinhardt too. So like sometimes I'll do one player prop from each team to get that like plus money, and that works out well in matchups like this. But I also agree with the chat that the series could definitely. I can't see it not going 7. Actually, it's just like this is how they play. So
It shapes out to that. Do you find that betting player props in the playoffs is different than the regular season for the NHL?
Yes, for sure. There's unders become your best friend in a lot of different ways. So the scoring is going to be lower, and I find that that's when you have to target the bigger players, the better players. It's mostly going to come from them because they're just going to be on the ice more than they probably are in the regular season.
That's for sure. And I know you like betting saves props a lot too. And there's could be some opportunity there. You've got Sergei Bobrovsky against Vasilevsky. I think that's your heavyweight goaltending matchup there for sure. Bobrovsky wasn't as good this regular season than he has been. He was lights out in the playoffs. But I think that might be a big deciding factor too. If one goalie, obviously if one of them gets hurt, that's devastating. If one of them gets hot, or if one of them has an off game. And you have to wonder, again, going back to Chuck, you're jumping in here after, 2 months, and you're jumping right into one of the hardest series of the first round. How do you all of a sudden jump back into that pace, right? It could be hard. And if it takes them 2 or 3 games, it could be too late if Tampa's already up by 3. I know you took Tampa money line here. I took Florida. I do think, not just to play devil's advocate, but I know going into this season, Tampa not re-signing Steven Stamkos, they didn't know, is Victor Hedman going to start to age out a little bit? That never happened, and Tampa's been really good, and especially flying up the standings there to finish in the second spot in the division, had a chance to win the division. But I think Florida's just a little bit coming off of the Stanley Cup, and you can talk about the Stanley Cup hangover, but I think going into this season, maybe there was less expectation on Tampa. So for that reason, I'll just take Florida. But I mean, you can flip a coin betting this really any way you want. But if you want to take a series to go 7 prop, I think that's the one there.
Yeah.
Let's shift to the Washington Capitals and the Montreal Canadiens. The story really of this series is just Alex Ovechkin. I think he's been the story of the entire NHL season, breaking Wayne Gretzky's goal record. Do you think he can continue this pace going into the playoffs? You've got, if they want to make a cup run, you've got another 15 to 20 games to go. Do you think he's still got it in the tank?
Well, the biggest L I had this year was basically saying that I didn't think he had anything left in the tank when it started. And so now I'm just going to say that Ovi can do whatever Ovi wants to do, and he'll be great. And I think he's like 1 or 2 years younger than me. So it's just mind blowing, but he's good. I think they used him very wisely after he broke the record. They gave him lots of time to kind of chill out a little bit. So I think he'll be fine, at least in round 1. But yeah, I don't know if he has to play that many games, I could see it becoming an issue.
And I was in the same boat as you, because even just following the betting trend of it at the start of the year, the odds for him to break the record were plus 600-700. And then even at the All-Star break, I think they were still plus 250. It really wasn't until the last couple months that he just went on this incredible tear, as he tends to do. Like, he'll go 10 games without a goal. Then all of a sudden he's got 10 in the next, 8 games. I don't think, and because I went through and did my bracket for the NHL playoffs this year, and the first round I felt like I didn't have much problem with, but it does get interesting pretty quickly. I think that'll be the test. I don't think Montreal was the last team to squeak into the playoffs. I know they've got Nick Suzuki. He had 89 points. They've got Caulfield. They have a good young team. Washington had 7 players that scored over 20 goals this season. So even if Ovechkin's not Alex Ovechkin, there is a lot of backup that he's got there. So I will be interested to see if Washington advances. They would play, who is it that they would play in the next round? Carolina, the winner of the Carolina New Jersey series. I think that's where it gets interesting, where it's going to be a little bit more of a hard fought battle. But you've actually got a nice plus 155 on this series. You're betting the Capitals to win this in 5 or less, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I don't see Montreal. I would be shocked if they took 1. I think it'll be a clean sweep. And like you talked about, me and the plus money issues, but plus 155 for them to clear this out, I'll take that all day. So.
And I didn't have a bet on this beforehand because the Capitals are -1 or -330, and then even the spread of 6 or less was -145. But when I saw that from you, I think I'm going to jump on that as well. There's usually at least one sweep in the first round of the NHL playoffs, and I think that this one is the one. If there's going to be one, I would also be curious to sprinkle a little bit on what that would be too for Washington to win in a sweep. Because that's probably, if that's plus 155, you're looking at probably plus 250 range, I would think, for Washington to sweep that series. And I think that that's a very, very real possibility. As I mentioned, the winner of that series will face the winner of this series. It's the last series on deck. It's the Carolina Hurricanes and the New Jersey Devils. Carolina comes into this heavy favorites, -245. You've got the Devils on the flip side, plus 200. Carolina is -115 to cover, and the Devils are -105 to cover as well. So the books think that Carolina is sort of going to roll over New Jersey here. This one's interesting to me. Obviously, Carolina, we talked earlier, they traded for Mikko Rantanen. He played, I think, 11 games for them, 2.5 weeks. Then they trade him. They do get Taylor Hall out of it. They do get Logan Stankoven out of it, who they have helped them. They've got a deep team. And then you look at New Jersey, they've only played 500 hockey since the start of the year. Do you think that it's that Carolina is going to kind of roll over New Jersey here too?
I think they're going to win. I'm not sure if it's going to be quite the rollover that minus 245 says it's going to be. I feel like New Jersey is another one of those teams that can get other teams into like kind of slowed down slog fight like type of hockey. So I think the Canes will win. I don't think that's going to be hard, but I think it's going to be uglier than the minus 245 suggests.
I agree with you too. I do think on New Jersey's side, they're going to struggle with Jack Hughes not playing. He had shoulder surgery. He's going to miss the rest of the year. I think he's missing the entire playoffs. He was their leading scorer. And then again, Leafs fan here, Sheldon Keefe, who's now the coach of the Devils, he never did anything with the Leafs. And I saw a couple of weeks ago, New Jersey was in a must-win game when they showed one of the intermission speeches. And even just watching his speech, it just felt very blah. Like I just watching it, it's like as a player, I'm not getting fired up for that speech. It was just kind of, come on guys, we got this, just such a cliche type thing. So I do think that that's going to work to their disadvantage. Then on Carolina, their best defenseman, Brent Burns, he's 40 years old now. And this is the first year I think that he started to look old. His metrics are still there, but he's giving the puck away a lot more and he's not scoring at the same clip. But I'm actually going to take my favorite bet for this one is actually the Devils plus 1.5. I think that the Devils can push this series to 7 games, despite what I just said about Sheldon Keefe. I just think New Jersey's always a tough place to play, and I just never trust. I don't trust Rod Brind'Amour, and I don't trust Carolina. Do you think that New Jersey can take this to 7, or Carolina's going to roll them?
Yeah, I mean, I saw your bet. I'm not betting either side of this just because I'm not as familiar with these two teams. So this would be another one that I like player props for better, mostly because the goaltending is interesting. But yeah, I can see it going 7. I can see it going 7, and I can see Carolina sweeping them. So it's like, how do you measure that?
Yeah, I would agree. It was a tough series to call just because, I think it's the series with probably the least name value. The top line of Carolina is good, but they're not necessarily all stars or anything of that nature. So that's a series that it's probably a bet it and forget it. And I'm going to set that bet, and I'll catch that game on the highlights. But that wraps up the Eastern Conference. Just to quickly recap, I had the Toronto Maple Leafs to cover on the spread there. Kelly's going to be heavy in the props with that one. I'm taking the Panthers minus 115. Kelly's got the Lightning on the other side. And then the minus 2.5 for the Washington Capitals plus 155. I didn't have a bet, but I am jumping on that. I like that plus 155 a lot. And I'm going to take probably Washington to sweep that series as well and see what that's at. So that's your breakdown for each series on either side. Now we can start talking about futures, which is, do you have a first of all, do you bet futures? And if you do you have a strategy that you like to go to in terms of like cup winners, Western Conference, Eastern Conference, that sort of thing?
I'm not huge into futures just because I think in the NHL playoffs kind of anything can happen. But that you also get better money for that. So I prefer to do the conference winners, which I know is kind of odd. But it's like last year I would have had like Florida and Edmonton. That was kind of what I was assuming was going to happen. But I didn't bet it because, I was like, I don't know, do I really know anything? But yeah, yeah, I'm fine putting in a small wager on Stanley Cup just to like have one, but it's not my favorite thing.
And do you have a pick for, first of all, I guess I'll run through the Stanley Cup odds, which again, I think are just so out of whack. You've got the Dallas Stars. This is from DraftKings. Dallas Stars at plus 700. I actually think that might be plus 800 now as of today, because again, the Jason Robertson news. But Stars plus 700. You've got the Florida Panthers plus 800. The Avalanche at plus 800. You've got Tampa 900. Oilers plus 900. Canes plus 900. And then you've got following them the Knights, Capitals, and the Jets all over 10 to 1. it's interesting again. The Stars and the Avalanche, one of those teams is going to be out right off the bat. Panthers and Lightning, one of those teams are going to be out right off the bat. I know what my futures bet's going to be for the Stanley Cup. Do you have one?
Yeah, I decided that as I broke it down, I went with the Oilers at plus 900. Plus 900 just feels about perfect for them. And again, it's a dice roll on the health. I think when they're healthy, and like I said, with this shot suppression that they did this year, they're built a little bit better for the playoffs than they have been lately, because they're not just trying to outscore everyone like 7-6 every game. So I'm going with them because I'm a homer and this is our first show and I get to do that.
Of course. And I do think, to the experience on the Oilers, finally, they spent so many years trying to get over the hump that I think getting where they got last year, I think, isn't the ultimate in winning, but I think that experience will help them as well. I did pick the Leafs to win the Stanley Cup at plus 1,200. I got it at, and that's just because I do it every year, because I'll be damned if I don't bet the Leafs to win the Cup in a year that they actually do. So I'm totally fine with losing that one. But I took the Winnipeg Jets. I got it at plus 1,100. And this is a strategy I actually learned from Matt Peralt, who does a lot of stuff on the Betting Pros channel as well. I'm taking that not so much in thinking that Winnipeg is going to win the Stanley Cup, but it's a way to play off it. So in their first round against the Blues are already, plus 160, plus 200. So I'm just going to take the Blues right there on the start. So I kind of will play off that if the Jets, let's say you're betting 1 unit, you get all the way to the end, the Jets win you 11 units back, they're going to be probably around even money all the way through. Like, even if they get to Vegas in the conference finals, I don't think Vegas is going to be something like minus 200, right? So you can take the other side of the Jets all the way through to at least make your money back. And then if you can get to the end, then you've probably got 4 or 5 units of profit. So that's my bet. Not that I think is going to win, because I agree with you. The Stanley Cup playoffs are the playoffs that really anything can happen. I think in the NBA, the OKC Thunder are plus 145 to win the NBA championship. Who's ever betting before the playoffs start at plus 145? Like, that to me just seems crazy. But I will take the Jets at plus 1,100 and just sort of play off of that all the way through. So I'll keep everybody up to date with that too. And again, as we get into the actual meat of it, take the Blues, for a quarter unit to break even in the first round. And then you're only down a quarter unit if Winnipeg moves on. What about the Conn Smythe? So did you want to talk about a bet in the Eastern or Western Conference, or should we just skip to the Conn Smythe?
Yeah, I mean, no, I can tell you that what I've got is the Capitals coming out of the East because I like their number, and then I put the Oilers in because I like their number. I just think that people are they're overlooking a lot of the other elements that Washington brings to the table. It was like Ovechkin dominated all the storylines, but they're deep than what they've been. So that's who I have in the finals, which would be, I'm sure, really heavily watched. So
and Capitals plus 500, I see, for them to win the Eastern Conference. I think that's a great bet, because again, right out of the gate, you're eliminating one of the Panthers or the Lightning, who are the top 2 teams to win the Eastern Conference. So essentially, you can cancel one of those out right now, and you're getting the Capitals they had the most points in the East. You are getting them at 5-1. So I think that's another bet. I'm liking your Washington bets here that I think I might have to jump on. And then obviously you mentioned the Oilers in the West too, plus 450, I see. And that, again, Stars-Avalanche knocks them out. What about the President's Trophy curse? So we did touch on this a little bit earlier. I don't put as much stock into it because I think that they've got Connor Hellebuck, and you can rely on him to stand on his head and to do anything. I don't think they fluked their way to the most points. And again, I think at plus 1,200, because the books are just going where the money is going, and no one's betting on Winnipeg because it's a small little town in Canada, that everyone's just going to look at that and go, oh, the Winnipeg Jets, why would I ever bet that? So again, I don't think it's necessarily that they're going to run all the way through. I just think the value of 10, 11, 12-1 is too big to pass up on a team like that.
Yeah, and I think that's your strategy, Peralt's strategy, obviously, it'd be a really great way to approach that bet.
It's worked out. I bet on the Dodgers last year to win the World Series, and that's sort of how I learned that you didn't end up with the whole thing, but you ended up with a little bit. So it's better to
Right.
win small than lose big in the betting world.
Exactly.
Talking about the Conn Smythe, Conn Smythe's not something I traditionally bet, just because I'm already trying to predict the teams to get there, let alone the players that are the MVP that get there. But you've got Nathan MacKinnon leading the way at plus 1,300, Connor McDavid plus 1,500, Connor Hellebuyck at plus 1,800, Leon Draisaitl 22-1. And then you've got Jack Eichel and Cale Makar coming up there at the end. Do you have a pick on the Conn Smythe, or is it sort of something you stay away from as well?
Yeah, I stay away from that. Because obviously it depends on which team goes where. But McKinnon and McDavid, I would never do Draisaitl, because I think that if the Oilers made it that far, I can't see him beating out McDavid for it. So I don't like any of them, even though the odds are really great.
I agree with that too, and I think that the odds just aren't there. Like, there's so many different options or opportunities. A lot of time a goalie could win the Conn Smythe that, like you said, to bet Cale Makar plus 2,500. Like, if that was plus 5,000, maybe that's worth something and he has a great series. But same to what you said with the Oilers, I think if the Avalanche do win the Stanley Cup, I think McKinnon is kind of the one that's going to get that there. So that's the interesting thing. You do have a interesting prop novelty bet involving Nathan MacKinnon that I think I have to get on there as well. Why don't you tell us about that?
So DraftKings runs these, novelty prop bets that people should never ever bet, like on the Super Bowl and things like that. But in hockey, I think it's a little different, and they haven't put any up for the Oilers, so I didn't get to go that direction. But they have Nathan MacKinnon to record 1 point in every game in round one at plus 120. So again, back to the plus money for me. He averages like 1.29 or 1.3 points in each game in the playoffs, and I just think that he's going to have to lead the way for them to take down the Stars. And I just can't see him not getting a point, so I'm going with that to just double some money.
I like that bet as well, and there's a lot of opportunities there. Keep your eye on DraftKings, FanDuel, Bet365, depending on where you are. They will throw up a lot of even timed ones too that are, Austin Matthews to get 2 goals in round one, like certain things that you can get that people aren't looking for. So I like that you got that one there, because I totally agree. I think MacKinnon, even if the series were to go 4 games and they got swept, like he's probably getting a point in all of those games anyway. So I definitely think that is a great one to jump on as well. So go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say the other one, if I'm waiting for it. Last year, I bet McDavid to get 10 points in round one when they played the Kings. I think he got 5 in one game. Like, if it's 10 points total for that series, like, you just jump on it, especially if it's plus money. It's absurd to me. So,
and I do think, obviously, we're in different countries, so maybe it's a little bit different there. But even in Canada, where hockey is very popular, I feel like the books don't really. It's why another reason I love betting the WNBA is that I don't think the books have really adjusted to, like, the NBA, NFL is very sharp. I feel like the numbers can be very soft when it comes to NHL betting and giving you layups a little bit of not understanding how good some of these players are, and not understanding, like you said earlier, how much these players, like Connor McDavid, might play 30 minutes a game, where in the regular season he's playing 18, 19, 20. It makes a big difference that I don't think is necessarily taken into account. There's a lot of opportunities to bet the NHL.
Yes, I agree entirely.
So before we start to wrap it up with our best bets, what is your one bold or two bold prediction for the NHL playoffs?
What I said earlier, where I think Washington is coming out of the East, and I don't think that anyone's giving them enough attention or credit, because they just think it's one guy and they're ignoring a whole lot of power.
It's hard to disagree with that, and similar to, not to go back to the Winnipeg Jets once again, but I think they will break this curse, and I think that the Winnipeg Jets will come out of the West. I think they'll be in the Stanley Cup Finals. When you go through the bracket and you look at who they've got to beat, the road just, I want to say it's not difficult, but when you've got Connor Hellebuyck, Mark Scheifele's had a great year as well, and I think that they're going to be taken lightly every series that they go into, and the money is just there as the value. So my bold prediction, I'm not going to say the Leafs will be the Winnipeg Jets to win the West there. So as we wrap it up, we could get into our best bets, the ones that we're locking in. I will let you start. What are your best bets for the NHL playoffs round one?
Yeah, you said you didn't want to bet 3 spreads, but I just see 3 that I really like. So I'm going Jets -1.5, Knights -1.5, and then that Capitals bet of -2.5. Those are easily my favorite for the first round overall. And then I'm going to throw some money on the Oilers for the Stanley Cup.
I like it, and I appreciate, again, the Capitals bet that I'm jumping on as well to make some money on that. My bets that I'm already locked in, give me the Toronto Maple Leafs to cover at +120. Give me the Vegas Knights to cover at +110. Give me the Colorado Avalanche to win that series on the money line, and then I'm going to take the Winnipeg Jets to win the Stanley Cup. I got it at +1100. Shop around. There's a lot of different numbers that are floating out around there. So that is going to do it for our debut episode of the NHL Playoffs Best Bets. Very excited. The playoffs start tomorrow with 2 games. The schedule is weird, so I'm not sure when the other games will be. But in terms of our schedule, make sure you're here every Tuesday and Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern on Twitch, twitch.tv/fantasypros. Every Tuesday, every Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, where Kelly and myself will be talking about the NHL playoffs, giving you our best bets for each and every game and each and every round, player props, and I'm very excited. Are you very excited?
I'm stoked. I'm so excited that we get to do this, so I hope people tune in.
It is the best. I said it earlier, the AFC and NFC Championship weekend in the NFL is number 1, but number 2, first round in the NHL is the best playoffs, because even though we've told you what we think is going to happen, you truly don't know what's going to happen. So look forward to seeing you again on Tuesday. Happy Easter if you celebrate, or happy weekend if you don't. And I will see you next week. Go Leafs, go.
I want to say go Oilers, but I still think Callie will cut me off. So
I don't know. I just don't think the LA Kings, they're going to lose 4 straight playoff rounds.
Yes, they are. Why is that hard?